Hello, families. Hello, families. It's Melissa. She, they pronouns. Sex positive families. Super excited because we've arrived to the day that we're going to be doing our series that is Friends of Sex Positive Families. And we're starting with our first official guest. Earlier this week, we did do a live also with another individual that was in the field. Some of y'all might have caught it, Positive Sex Ed. We talked with Magali about some amazing sex aids in terms of anatomy. And so that was super awesome. But today, I almost said the word sex toys. I didn't mean to say that. I have that on my brain because our guest that we're having today, Dr. Lene St. John, aka the MamaSutra, is going to be talking with us about some topics that correlate with sex toys. So I'm going to go ahead and get her on. Hi, everyone. Let me wave at a couple people first. So glad you all are joining. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Lene on. Hey, everyone. Excited to have y'all join us. And so Lene should be hopping on in a moment.
Hey, it had to ask me for
Hello, how are
permission.
you?
Consent.
Let me get adjusted.
I'm doing well.
Consent
The
is
camera
key.
had to ask for permission. Yeah, exactly. How are you?
That's awesome. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm excited and nervous. It's really funny.
Yeah, right. We're doing, so there's so much, even as I was getting on this live, like tons of people are going live now on Instagram Live, more than it was the standard, because this is another way right now that we can connect with people, and that people can know that they're not alone. Just, because it can feel that way when we're at home and outside of our normal kind of processes. So
for sure.
So lots of folks are joining, and so we'll just go ahead and hop in. Again, This is Friends with Sex Positive Families. I have a lot of people that I just love and adore that do this work in this field, and I want to make sure that people are connected. And this is someone, I'm going to be managing the comments, PS, but so
there's a lot of people joining.
Who I have right now with us is Dr. Lene St. John, who is also known as the MamaSutra. And you want to share a little bit, Lene, about yourself and your journey to the work that you do?
Yeah. So I went back to school when my kids were little to the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality to study about sexuality, to study about sex. And of course, when I went in, I thought I knew everything, but you learn a lot of interesting things. But my journey has really, that first trimester in school, I figured out that I wanted to do sort of the sex and parenting thing, more like the parenting of, being a sexual parent and raising kids in a sex positive way, knowledgeable about their bodies and aware. And, the things that I was starting to notice were that, in order to talk about sexuality, there's a lot of stuff that we as adults kind of have to figure out for ourselves. Whatever shame or embarrassment or guilt that we had growing up, if we're not careful, we might put that on our kids. And so going back to school, I figured that out in the first trimester. And, years later, I finished a book, which is, the book you posted earlier this week.
You mean this one?
Yeah, that's my book, baby. It's called Read Me, A Parental Primer for the Talk. And there was lots of symbolism on that cover.
I want to know, I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
Okay, so, when I was writing it, the working title was Raising Sex Positive Kids, or Sex Smart Kids. And lots of sex educators were like, that's a great title. But then practically, I was never going to be able to advertise it on social media, right? Because the word sex was in it.
Yeah.
So I had titles that were like 20 words long, like just agonized over what the title of the book should be. And so I meditated. And while I was meditating, I got Alice in Wonderland, the rabbit, and the drink me. And while I was, meditating, I was like, oh, read me. Oh, a parental primer. It flowed right then.
Love it.
So,
Okay.
so yeah. And my partner was the one that picked the birds and the bees on the cover. The little rabbits reading birds and bees.
Yeah.
We had cherries, we had like all kinds of things, other options, but that was the best.
Well, that makes great sense. I love that. I mean, I'm sure you could talk about so many different things, but even I'm sure like the process of like writing a book and kind of just a journey that's been. I know we talked a little bit about that offline off of this conversation before, but it's just, there's so much knowledge that you have to share. And you've been doing, so like in your work as the MamaSutra and working with parents and families, before you wrote the book, what was a lot of your work? Like, how did you actually do the work? Were you teaching? Were you doing coaching?
Yeah. So I've done a little bit of everything. I've been doing this now since 2009. I was coaching, and then I took a break from coaching while I was teaching at a local community college here. I taught at CCSF, City College of San Francisco, for a few years, and then recently stopped that actually to launch the book and relaunch my website and stuff like that. So like more administrative things. And I kind of missed the teaching. I loved I did two types of audiences, or two types of students. I had the working adult degree program. So these were students that were adults, older adults who were going back. San Francisco had a program which was called Free City. I think that it still exists. But if you wanted to go back to school and you were a resident of San Francisco, you could go for free. And so there were a lot of people who were adults going back to finish a degree that they started. Maybe life had a different plan. What I found in my classes were, most of the women were, women who, maybe they had kids early and they didn't get to go back to school right then. Yeah. So it was amazing. And then I had just regular college kids, college aged kids. And so it was fantastic. And then just signed on actually with the California Relationship Centers as one of their coaches. So that's happening too.
Wow. So that's a new class. Will you be doing that with that? Coaching,
sex coaching with parenting. I mean, the thing that's happening now that I'm finding is, of course, we're sequestered now in a huge part of the country. And so, the whole conversation of sex and parenting is shifting a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do you stay a sexual parent or sexual being when you got little ones running around?
Yeah, it's shifting to like right in front of our faces, whereas it was a lot easier to try to find some pockets, whether it was having having babysitters or caregivers, or just time for date nights and things like that, where we could maybe create some kind of physical distance from these children.
Yeah, can't do it anymore.
Right. That's a heck of a lot harder to do when they're just right there all the time. And so on that, so I want to say, I'm going to keep holding this up because I know folks are going to be joining us at different times. And feel free, folks that are joining, you want to say hi, tell us where you're joining from. I'm in Austin, Texas, and Lene,
I'm in San Francisco.
Yeah. So we're on the opposite ends of the United States, but I know we have a very international audience, lots of folks joining from other parts of the world. So feel free to share with us where you're at. But again, this is Lene's read, and it just came out, was it last year, at the end of last year?
Middle of last year. And so, I'm switching arms because my arm's getting tired.
Yeah.
So it came out the middle of the year, and it's basically, I wrote this book. It's a framework to help parents talk about things that are other than what parts go where, who does what kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a framework that you can use whether your kid is 2 or you're talking to somebody who's 102. It's also something you can use even if you are an abstinence only proponent, which I personally believe in, comprehensive sex ed. But I know there are people out there who, are a little more hesitant. Maybe reading the book might convince you of the reasoning to do comprehensive sex ed. It's the framework is basically 5 things. I call them the 5 building blocks to a healthy sexuality. They're communication, consent, respect, pleasure, and fantasy. And each of those 5, they break down in the book. There's a chapter, I think, for each one of them. And I give, really scientific justification for all these things as well. So yeah, it's there was a lot of work and a lot of time put in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so those building blocks. So two things stand out for me that might not be talked about as much, and certainly if it's like abstinence only. So when we talk about pleasure and we talk about fantasy,
Yes.
so maybe could you share a little bit more about that? Like, why was that important in terms of building blocks? How do those intersect? We won't give it all, folks. There, we'll share a little more after this about how you might be able to snag a copy of this. But otherwise, yeah. So fantasy and pleasure, like what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, and honestly, those are the two blocks that tend to give parents a little more pause, especially if they're not particularly, aware of how pleasure and fantasy are important, even in adult sexuality. But pleasure it's an understanding that it's not just sexual pleasure. Many adults tend to think of pleasure as just sexual pleasure, like it's sort of like synonymous. But there's a lot of things that give us pleasure that don't have anything to do with sex. I am a strong proponent of cuddling, and I don't think that's sexual. I've worked with clients through Cuddlist.com, and to have people understand that there's no pressure for sex, and to just feel the feelings of like being held, it's amazing work. So pleasure is super important, and it's not just, like I said, not just sexual pleasure, but it's self-care as well. Right now, being sequestered, being, self-isolating, what are the things that give you pleasure? Super important right now with, being holed up. Yeah. Going outside for a walk can be pleasurable, right? And the last one, the fantasy block, at the very least, if we're not talking about sexual topics or covering the broad.
Oh, it's giving us a little pause. Can you, I think it cut out for us. So maybe repeat that again. Ah, gotcha. So maybe repeat that
fantasy.
portion about fantasy. Yeah.
Okay.
We have folks coming from Phoenix and Saudi Arabia, Miami. Hello, everyone. Just want to pop in.
I know, I saw that pop in. Hello. So fantasy, I'll repeat it. If you aren't talking to your kids about sex, at the very least, what you need to help them understand. I might have to move to a different part of the house because I see that you're getting. Yeah,
it's a little delayed or choppy. Okay.
Okay. Maybe the whole family's on the internet now.
In front of the sex toys, like right before. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something we've experienced at home. Oh, I see it. I can kind of see it. Okay. Is it good? It's going choppy for us. So I don't think we're getting everything that's going on. It's getting choppy. Uh-oh. What do y'all think, those that are watching us live now? Are you able to gather us both at this time? I could, if you disconnect, maybe I can bring you back on and maybe that'll help out. I'm going to X you out and I'm going to bring you back on and see if we can get a better connection. All right, so we're going to bring just the top screen. Yeah. thanks for hanging in there. So so we'll wait for Lene to come back on with a better connection for us. Oh, let's try this again. It's challenging right now, y'all. Are y'all having the same issue? There's so many folks inside our homes that are using the internet. We've been having that go on. We've got different streaming, because we got to keep ourselves occupied, and that's one way in this modern world. So there you go. It looks super crisp.
Okay, good.
So fantasy, go.
Okay. So fantasy, I saw it as, at the very least, if we're not talking to our kids about sex, we need to make sure that what they're seeing out there, that we tell them and explain to them that all the stuff that we're seeing out there is someone else's fantasy. And there's a lot of things for us as adults that we could learn from our kids as it relates to fantasy as well. In particular, like if you watch a kid play, especially little kids, like they are just so engrossed in what they're doing. And for us as adults, when we're with our partners, there's a lot of stuff that's happening where we're like in our heads, or we're thinking like, how do we look? Just don't even think about that. Try to put your head into what you're doing and the moment.
Being
right?
present, yeah.
Being present, absolutely. So that's fantasy.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, and I find myself coming to this point with parents a lot, is we're adult children. So we were children once. And unfortunately, we become socialized to become an adult, quote unquote, air quotes.
Grow up.
Right. Growing up means we're pulled away from our authentic selves, our understanding of our intrinsic worth and value, our connection to our bodies. Yeah. That's an unfortunate part, especially in Western society, of becoming an adult, and of fantasy, and of our connection to our understanding of play and of pleasure, totally separate often from sex. And so I love very much that these are elements that are a part of your building blocks, because this is such a challenge. And especially when adults who are survivors of sexual trauma, these areas can be very triggering, because many times early experiences or experiences along their journey were disrupted, were violated, were taken over by someone else's fantasy again, right? Yeah. And so it becomes hard to trust what again is intrinsically yours, and how you can develop that and see that through for another young person.
And actually I do talk about that a little bit in the book, where I sort of push away the title or the term virginity, and I talk about sexual debut. And it's for the reason you just described. Sometimes people don't have a chance to say when they began becoming sexual. It also, with virginity just being so limited in its definition, right? Like penis and vagina sex. People who are, LGBT don't fit into that same definition, right? So when do they get to have a sexual debut? Well, it could be any number of things, right? You have multiple debuts. You could have it be your first kiss, or your first orgasm, or your first, who knows?
Yes.
However you define it. And it becomes a very empowering thing, I think.
Yeah. And this was something you were talking about again, because you wrote the book years ago. So so back then, if the book had truly released back then, it would definitely be even more progressive, and kind of ahead of a time that right now we're starting to see more conversations around sexual debuts and really smashing the patriarchal concepts associated with virginity.
Right on.
So I love when you shared that with me, again, just knowing that you've been doing this work for a very long time. And it's really cool that now we're in an environment and in a culture that is ready to really confront this and smash this, and parents who are willing to say, okay, I want to do something completely different and better for my young people. And sex positivity is definitely a pathway towards that. So we do have a question here from Jader that says, do you have any recommendations of sex ed books for 20-plus-year-old queer individuals? Thank you in advance.
Yeah. The Guide to Getting It On is the first thing that popped in my head. Do you know that book?
The Guide to Getting It On.
The Guide to Getting It On. Paul Johannides. Let me grab it from they might actually have a more up-to-date version than this one. This is my, so this is the one that I'm thinking of. It's pretty
Nice.
good. I mean, it's a hefty,
Ooh,
hefty book.
that's
What
loads. I
else?
got a lot of
It's
recommendations in that guide. You're
it's
going to get
it's
it
like
all the way
a,
on.
I mean, it's a serious, it's a tome.
Nice.
Um, so LGBTQ kids, I'll have to take a look through because
I
I'm
want to
sure I have
offer
more.
one that I have right here
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
This one, Drawn to Sex, the basics. This one's good. Erica Moen
Oh yeah.
and Matthew Nolan. This one's really good, and it's also in what do you call it? Graphic, right? Like
Yeah.
graphic form in terms
Like a
of
graphic novel.
yeah, and it just covers so much,
Oh
and
yeah, that's
it's
good.
a real good like 101 kind of thing. And then also Sex by Heather Carina, the All You Need
Yeah,
to
that's what I
Know,
was looking for. Here it is.
right here.
I have that one too.
Let's see if we
Yay.
have it, because it came two versions.
Twinsies.
Let's see which one. Oh, you got two. Yeah, it actually had two different covers. So sometimes if you look on certain places, it may look a little different than the ones that we have. But Heather Carina,
Yeah,
who is the founder of Scarletine, again, like an innovator in the sex positivity space, especially for youth and young
exactly.
adults. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
Heather's work
those.
is amazing.
Yeah, I think those are some great recommendations. Okay, let me make sure I'm doing a time check for us, because we wanted to try to keep these chats not too lengthy, and we are going to save them on IGTV so folks can access them at a later time, because we know everybody's in different time zones and doing different things.
Yep.
In terms, okay, so one thing that I enjoyed about your book is your style of writing. And
Thank you.
again, you're not just a sexologist in terms of like profession. You are a parent. You are a
Hmm.
parent of teens right now, right? They're
Yeah,
in all,
yeah.
are they all in the teen years?
17 and 16.
Yeah, so you're in the trenches. You've been
Yeah.
through different ages and stages,
Yep.
and you integrate so much of your experiences of parenting in a sex positive way, and having
Yeah.
to confront some of these things yourself, including like some of the anxieties and the discomforts that come up along this. It isn't just,
There's a lot.
right, like, oh, I'm a
There's a lot.
sexologist or a sexuality educator, and so I don't ever feel uncomfortable, or I know always exactly what to say. And right.
I don't.
That's
Yeah.
not the truth.
So,
Yeah.
so we talked a little bit offline about that bullet vibrator. I tell a story in the
Yeah.
book. It was the first semester when I went back to study sex. I had a bullet vibrator. You know those little tiny ones that look like a lipstick?
Yes.
So I had that, and I had cleaned my toys, which is always good advice, but I
Yes.
hadn't yet put it away. And I set it on the counter, and I was brushing my teeth, and I could hear my daughter like skipping into the room where I was. And I was like, okay, I had to put it away, kind of tucked it in a drawer. And of course, she walks in and opens that drawer. And I'm like watching her as I'm brushing my teeth. And she's like, Mom, what's this? And I was like, it's nothing, put it away. She said, no, what is it? And yeah, I mean, long story short, I told her it's a vibrator. And by now she's like, putting it
Good
on her
thing you
forehead.
washed it. Wash those toys, friends.
So yeah, so she said, it feels good, or it tickles. And I said, imagine what it feels like on your private parts. And she turned it off, put it in the drawer, closed the drawer, and skipped out of the room.
All right, time to go.
And I was like, what just happened? Because it was, it was my first instinct though was, to put it away. Don't, let's not talk about that. But she was insistent. So I was like, I kind of couldn't, it made sense not to lie. So I just told her, and it was like no big deal. She put it down, ran off.
Yeah.
So,
Right?
I mean, I got permission from her to share this story, and she didn't even remember saying it to me, but I would say it's a couple years ago now, and we were just talking generally about sexuality, and I said, when you're ready, we're kind of talking about, when the time comes, and she said, Mom, I'm not ready for that right now. She's like, I want to find somebody that I feel really comfortable with. And I was like, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. You know, why is comfortable the word that you're coming up with? And she said, I get the sense that sex is awkward, and I want to find somebody that I'm totally comfortable being awkward with.
Oh.
I was like, I never.
wish I had those insights when I was
Right?
younger.
That is not an insight that I had. I mean, everything was about secrecy and privacy and you know, don't talk about it. But you know, clearly this was something, you know, she'd given some thought to.
Because you fostered that. Because you fostered that, right? Because that secrecy and that shame and all that stuff, that I had the same kind of experience that we picked up on because the world around us sent us either overt or covert messaging that told us that these were things that we shouldn't talk about. But yet we saw so much sexualization in the media or in different, you know, different forms of media. And so there's such mixed messaging. But when you foster at home the openness, like you've fostered, like I've fostered, like parents out there are working to foster and are fostering, then yes, when they get to these teen years and they start to, they then have the information and the knowledge, because my daughter was very similar in this way. They're like, you know what? I know I don't have to keep my thoughts and feelings a secret. I have a lot of information about this because it hasn't been hidden from me. It hasn't been, it's not a mystery. And so now I'm in a position to make an informed choice. And I can really take a step back and say, well, how do I want sex to integrate into my life? Because
weighing the options.
matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I mean,
so awesome.
It was a conversation. Like I said, she didn't even remember it. I had to like, do you remember talking about this? She's like, oh, yeah. So, so no, it can happen if you're having these conversations with your kids and being open. You know, they might teach you some things that you didn't even think were
absolutely. You know, and that's important, right? It's recognizing that parenting is such it's a two-way experience. Like it's moving us away from these power dynamics that says we have to know all the answers. We have to have it all figured out. We're learning from them all the time. They're amazing teachers when we allow that type of dynamic.
I had someone recently ask, you know, how do I have a positive body image? You know, how do I help my children have positive body image when I don't have positive body image? And I had a situation, I mean, I'm a woman, you know, cisgender female who grew up in America. And with all of that messaging around bodies, shapes, what's ideal and all that jazz. And so I have stuff that's still in my body that I struggle with. And I've tried really hard to not have a lot of that in the house. And so my kids do not understand at all when I feel weird about my body. They're just like, what? So it's been interesting. My kids have helped me sort of reprogram the shame that I've had about my own body. It's been really interesting. They are our teachers as well.
Yes.
That's basically what I was trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to kind of segue a little bit because we're trying to be good keepers of time. I want to share with Jader also that in terms of queer folks and sex ed, Eva Bloom with What's My Body Doing is amazing, doing amazing work. So follow What's My Body Doing on Instagram. And also she has so many videos on YouTube about that are just amazing. So just want to throw that out there too, that I know books can be kind of hard to get a hold of right now.
She and Nadine Thornhill also have the video. Yeah. Sex Ed School.
Yep, Sex Ed School, and those are super great. I just shared about those in the newsletter that went out this week as a totally free resource that's really great for families. We're doing a lot of homeschooling all of a sudden, many of us, because we're homeschoolers, right? Yeah, everybody's homeschooling now. Romeo says body image, even though I'm a heterosexual male, I struggle too. I just hide it.
Absolutely.
Not healthy, they say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's so brave of you
too.
To talk about these issues openly. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to ask one other question that also literally came up in a DM message, but it comes up weekly, about sex. So we talked about sex toys as it relates to like teens and young people. So
My partner just walked in the room.
Oh.
Teens and young people and toys.
So the question comes up very regularly: should a parent be giving a sex toy to a young person that's curious? Questions can come up: should they gift one as a way to like support their sexual exploration, or or should they allow a young person who may come to them and ask for one? Do you have any thoughts or insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, if your child is not interested in one and you give them one, it might just be awkward. If they ask you, that's different. That means that they're aware of their own sexuality, which is a wonderful thing. My thoughts on it were, and I can share this thought and you can decide for yourself if this is something, an approach you want. But my thought on sex toys was, or just on exploring your sexuality on your own as a young person, is I would prefer that, my kids understand their bodies before they start playing with other people, because I want them to understand that their pleasure is something for themselves. They shouldn't rely on somebody else to achieve or feel or whatever, however you want to word it. So my practice with my kids was, it's a little skewed because I get tons of sex toys sent to me from companies and vendors. So I have lots of things here, and sometimes when I'm unpacking a box, I'll say, here's, or if they're around and they come in to see what I've got, I'll describe it to them and I'll tell them what it is. And so, if there's an interest, I don't want to expose anybody, but if there's been an interest, and it's extra or it isn't accounted for, or it doesn't have a purpose, I've let my kids choose. And it's not a bad thing. I do call them toys as well, but I do also think of them as sexual health devices. They are playful and you can play. And some of the ones that we're going to talk about today are for play, but there are some that are, orgasms are healthy and they can help you boost your immune system, which
we need right
COVID. Exactly. So, there's nothing wrong with having an orgasm. It will boost your immunity. It'll help to, foster your innate immunity.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
And these become teachable moments and opportunities to talk and expand the conversation. If your teen is asking this question out of the blue and really you all haven't opened a conversation, so maybe it's something that they're picking up online or they're hearing about from friends, then the first step isn't just, okay, now let's go online and just try to buy this. This is an opportunity to learn more and to get curious and to ensure that you've really had the conversations or begin to have the conversations, like you said, that help them really understand their body and make an informed choice about their body and their pleasure and their connection to their body and all of that. So so it's really
the connection to the body
thing.
is key. They're going to have these bodies for their whole lives, and so it's important for them to be able to understand how it works, what feels good, eventually to be able to communicate that to a future partner would also be amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so in our final moments here, speaking of sex toys, so we want to share an opportunity with y'all. And this opportunity, so I know we've got some folks that are joining us live that have been on live that'll catch the IGTV. So Lene is just super awesome to share with the community a giveaway. And so we're going to be posting this giveaway. It'll be up for a few days. And so you don't have had to watch this in order to, we won't make a ton of demands that you have to go run and do this and, jump up and down and then, whatever. But we're going to give away a few things. And so, of course, one of those things has to be your book, right? So
yes.
One of those things is going to be Read Me, the parental primer for the talks. And that could be either in actual like physical form or digital
Yep.
form, right?
Correct. Correct. Digital form can be worldwide. It'll be in English. I only have an English version for the book. But if you are stateside, I can send it to you. So that works if you want a print copy. The print is limited to the States only because, you know, customs and all that jazz delays everything. And honestly, you know, with the way COVID is right now, maybe the digital is a better option.
Yeah, I might just guarantee that it makes it wherever it's trying to go. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about that because I know, again, we have an international audience, and it sucks whenever you see a giveaway opportunity and then it's like only for this part of the world. So we're not doing that to you here. So we'll have this giveaway, and we'll be able to give away a copy of this so that you can dive in. But guess what? You don't have to be a parent or actively sex positive parenting. There's another thing or things that Lene is willing to give away. And you want to share what that is?
Okay.
To another winner, a separate winner.
Exactly. To the separate winner, you have a choice of one. You can pick one of these three things. So I have this first thing is a Tenga Flip Zero. It's primarily for penis owners. You know, if you have somebody you know and love, or or if you yourself have, this is a masturbation toy tool. And another is this, grab it this way. So you can kind of see it there. This is the Satisfyer High Fashion. Satisfyer is a brand that has the toys that are similar to, actually each company now seems to have this same toy where it's primarily for people with a clitoris, and the little end at the top there in the middle of the screen, I guess, right there, kind of has a little air pocket suction type mechanism, and it goes, so it creates a yummy little vibration on the clitoris. And then the third item is something more BDSM, light kink, or kink light, I guess. So it's a expandable spreader bar and cuff set. So you can kind of see something playful. Yeah. So that's by Sport Sheets. So those are, you get to pick one of those three things. And yeah, I mean, we planned this before COVID, coronavirus, whatever. Hopefully we won't have any problems with shipping. But that one is limited to the States only because I have no idea, unless you want to pay for shipping and customs. I guess that would work. Maybe. And as long as it's not regionally or forbidden by country.
Yeah. We'll get all the wording and everything figured out clear on the post that we'll do. And I've got photos of Lene sent a photo of each of those items so that you'll be able to see it. So yeah, we'll start that giveaway probably in the next few days. And so just pay attention to the feed, the Instagram feed. Make sure you have your post notifications on, because Instagram is being super oppressive these days and not showing a lot of our content that has to do with sex positivity and sexual health on the algorithm as usual. We're getting a lot of that. So cool. A lot of thank you to us both. And I want to thank you, Lene.
Thank you.
Because this has just been so nice and so fun. And I think it's just, again, like you said, when we originally planned this, like coronavirus was like, who? Like we wouldn't have even known what you were talking about if you you said that word. And but now it's like even more appropriate that we're having these conversations and that we're helping to support families as they're engaging a lot more at home with their young people, and their young people are having curiosities. And so this read here is just excellent, y'all. It's so right for this sex positive families community, because so much of, like, I was just like shaking my head, like nodding my head through this. And so I know you all are going to love this. And so how can folks get connected with you, get connected with your work?
Yes, thank you. So I do need to go in and update the link in profile. because I do have a few giveaways, just freebies that I think are super timely right now, especially given the fact that we're all home and people are on their screens. I have two giveaways. One is a list of TED Talks, curated TED Talks that I've watched that I thought were educational. And then the second is a list of documentaries, like a viewing party, documentaries that I've watched. You can find some of them on Amazon Prime, some on, I mean, they're like a bunch of different places. You have to kind of look for them. I don't know if you've heard of Canopy. Canopy is like Netflix for your public library.
No.
It's Canopy with a K. And they have a lot of documentaries on there as well. And so this other list of recommended viewing documentaries, some you'll watch with your kids, maybe some you'll want to just see for yourself. But they're indeed all educational, all informative and interesting. And I've watched all of them, and all of them have been a definite part in my education around sexuality as well.
That is so awesome. So folks can, so when they go to, are you saying when they go to the link?
Yeah,
in
the
your
link
Instagram?
here in, yeah, the link here in Instagram. I had to put my elbows down because my arms are shaking. The link in Instagram, you should be able to find, the links will lead to these freebies. But then also I have a course coming up, a deep dive into the book basically. And so if you want information about that, you'll actually get access to, I'll send the email to you if you sign up for those freebies, because those will tell me that you're interested in the parenting stuff too.
Okay, so if they go to your website, themamasutra.net, then
Correct.
they can sign up for your email list and
That too.
be kept up to date, right, with a lot of these offerings?
Absolutely. There's more stuff coming. And I mean, as you probably expect with everybody being home.
Now we're just creating.
Seriously, there's a lot of stuff that's been sort of in the hopper. It's like, okay, now it's time.
Yeah. Yep. Well, so now that y'all have us, you keep letting us know, folks that are watching, keep letting us know how we can serve you, what information could be most helpful to you as you're navigating these conversations, and not just conversations with your young people, if you do have young people in your world, but with yourself on your own sexual health journey. And Lene definitely is an excellent resource for that, not just for parents, but for folks that are navigating their sexuality or that are navigating relationships, partnered sex or sex with others. So thank you so much, Lene.
Thank you for having me.
To connect in this way.
Thank you.
So this will be saved as an IGTV if all goes well. We are so grateful to all of y'all that were able to join us live, and we look forward to connecting with you all more in this great work that's going on. So again, read me, A Parental Primer for the Talk, Dr. Lene St. John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great day. Bye, Lene.